everybody. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. This is the Ask the Expert session for team management. If this format is new to you, I will go through the agenda. So we will start with what to expect in this session. We will introduce the team of experts that are here to answer your question. And then we will move to the most exciting part of raising questions and answering them. So what we should expect in those coming 30 minutes? Please use the chat box to ask questions. You can either post them anonymously or use your name. The question will appear to all once approved. If you see a question that is also relevant to you, upvote as your favorite using the thumbs up. We will mark it as an important topic and we will address that. The expert will answer verbally and we will do our best to answer the most popular questions. So let's talk a little bit about ethics. The session is recorded. I will ask you not to record the session, please. So to help us, please don't spam the chat. And also, please adhere to our Microsoft Code of Conduct that is attached here and also here in this next slide. So I would like to introduce the team. My name is Ronit Ben-Shefer. I'm the Product Marketing Manager for all the team management capabilities. And here with me is the team of experts that will be happy to answer your questions today. So here to you, Jamie.
Thanks so much, Ronit. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out and joining us for this interactive session. Really excited to be here and really looking forward to seeing your questions. This is our second instance. And we've and the one that we did earlier today was a lot of fun and a lot of good content. And so I'm really chuffed to be able to be here and have such an esteemed group along with me. Ronit and I are going to be handling questions verbally as we kind of go along, and at the same time, all the folks that are shown here and more in the Teams meeting are going to be handling the Q&A as well. So your questions are going to get answered at the same time. Hopefully we'll have some fun stuff to talk about. There was actually a question that had come in right as Ronit was getting started, and I'll just take that one straight away. When can we expect to have the ability to pull client diagnostic logs from a central facility? The logs which normally come with the 4-finger pray. I haven't heard that term before. 4-finger pray. Clearly, the 3-finger salute is, enshrined in Windows lore and history. Perhaps we can avoid having the 4-finger pray. Similarly, enshrined in Teams history. Pulling client logs is one of those kind of interesting scenarios where it's easy to think about as a scenario, but there's a lot of things that could go sideways with it, right? Obviously, one of them is if the client isn't connected to the service, then there's no ability for us to go and send a message down to the client unless we can do that out of band somehow, or otherwise, like the client's not operating with the service, right? So there's a whole domain of potential remediation possibilities that go away, right? If we can't even have the client connected into the service. We do have this model though of pulling logs, and that's in the device management space. So it's not to say that we can't do it or that it's like seemingly impossible or whatever. It's just that I think that the domain of scenarios that we could potentially address with this kind of log pull is less than if you have somebody physically sitting in front of the client doing again 4-finger pray and then operating with the logs from there. But that's definitely something that we can take back into engineering. As far as I'm aware, there's no current development along these lines to be able to pull logs from the client, but the scenario makes a lot of sense. And so the real question is, how much of the domain of potential error conditions could we handle in that sort of scenario? So Anyway, I just saw that we have a bunch of folks online, and I know Ronit's got more questions. So Ronit, what else do we got?
Yeah, so there is a very popular question around reporting, because I'm sure people are waiting for the meeting and dashboard report that is soon to come, but not yet. So the question is, are we going to see dashboard of meeting call quality like Zoom has? Graph, bit rate, latency, frame rate over time.
Yeah, I don't have a composition in front of me of all the different parameters that are in the meetings dashboard, but that's the intent, is both to be able to show a view of all the active meetings that are happening across the tenant, and then being able to drill into each one of those active meetings to be able to get the most up-to-date telemetry that we have about the current quality that's happening within that instance, within that particular meeting happening. And then you can imagine, of course, that when that meeting completes, that kind of falls into the call analytics view of the meeting, where we already have built out the ability to see all of the participants in the meeting, what media sessions they were connected to throughout the duration of the meeting. If they were connected with audio and video, if they were just looking at screen sharing, that sort of thing. And then being able to drill into each one of those sessions uniquely to be able to get all the gory details that come out of the media stack that tell us about all the different things that are happening with respect to everything from firewall traversal, nice done and turn, to bit rate and jitter and loss and all those pieces. So all the data's there. It's a function of us putting it together and composting it in a way that is, one, both scalable for customers of all sizes. You can imagine at an enterprise of significant size, there are a lot of meetings that are happening, and so wayfinding within that experience is important that we get right. And then second, that the data is accurate and clean. That we're pulling data from the right the right areas in our pipeline to be able to ensure that we are comfortable with the data integrity and that it's representing the reality of what's going on. As Ronit said, this is active development. This is work that we're really excited about getting out the door. Unfortunately, we just don't have the time frame to be able to share on that, but it is active work that's happening today.
Right. So the next question is also around reporting, and we are talking about the real-time analytics for the end users, not for admins, such as warning, alerts saying poor bandwidth or high latency. The message look like Alice network bandwidth is low in the client. We were announcing that this will come soon, so it will definitely be in the beginning of next year. Can you share, Jamie or anyone, a little bit more detail around that?
Around user-facing diagnostics for networking?
Yeah, and troubleshooting and some analytics, real-time analytics.
I didn't hear that last, the word prior to analytics.
Real-time.
Real-time analytics.
Yes.
Got it. That the real-time analytics is very much a part of the dashboard capability that we were talking about. Again, I want to stress, we have a lot of this facility already for when calls terminate, for when calls and meetings end. In the call analytics area of the product, there's a tremendous amount of data that is available there. When we're talking about then aggregating those and providing that in a way for IT pros to be able to quickly find in progress meetings and be able to drill in with the level of data necessary to remediate any issues, right? Like the scenario here isn't just, hey, I want to kind of go and look and see what all the meetings that are happening within my company. The scenario is, I have a meeting that's ongoing right now, something bad is happening. I'm not able to address it as a user, as a device issue, or with the user-facing diagnostics that are provided. So I need to have more data to be able to do that remediation. And that's where having an IT pro's view of what's happening with that current meeting or that current session makes a ton of sense. And as we said, that is active development that's going on.
Okay, another question is around managing local admin password, and someone is asking, how do we manage that?
Managing local admin passwords. That's interesting. I'd like to know a little bit more about that one. Maybe that's one that that some of the folks who are on the chat thread can do a little bit of back and forth on to kind of understand. You know, clearly with Teams, all of our identity is fundamentally a function of Azure Active Directory, whether those are users who are being synced from on-premises AD or whether those are users that are kind of born in the cloud. And so local admin passwords is a little bit more of a function of the workstation. And so I'm a little bit more curious what the all up scenario of that is about. So that's really interesting. Got another question here that I'll pick up from our chat thread while Ronit's picking up a couple more. While working with our local Microsoft resources last year, we were strongly discouraged from using private channels and Teams due to how complicated is made security. Has anything changed? That's shocking. I'm surprised to hear that we would dissuade folks from operating with private channels. There, in the very beginning, in the very initial availability of private channels, there may have been some levels of discrepancy between like the facility that's available in like e-discovery or in managing the SharePoint resources that are created with a private channel. But no, that's certainly not our canonical recommendation. You know, both with our customers and here at Microsoft broadly, we use private channels pretty extensively. It's a really useful feature for being able to have you know, within a team, have the leadership organization be able to operate in a private channel and have a lot of the benefits of chat, yet being able to have that within the auspices of the team, and you know, so that the chats don't have to be quite as prolific as perhaps we see in some organizations. So no, I think that my hypothesis on this is that there may have been some fast follow features around compliance or around kind of SharePoint management that were coming with private channels, but certainly that's not our guidance, or it's not a recommendation here unless there's some really specific scenarios that aren't called out here. Yeah, Ronit?
Yeah, so I think we will take a question now around something that we actually really announced already. The shared plans to align us to assign user to a policy as opposed to the current option of editing policy on a per user basis. So I think you can just a little bit share about this announcement we recently did in this event.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's just been a lot of work that we've done on the policy systems, and I'm sure if you've had the opportunity to follow the growth of the product as it started off in Skype for Business Online and then grew into Teams and saw Teams kind of take on a lot more of those workloads. You've seen more and more sophistication slowly get layered into the policy capabilities, right? Back in the Skype for Business Online days, the ability to create a policy, customize it, assign it to users was not something that was offered. Really, the way that the policy system was operating then was it would appear that you would have a series of selections, and then based on those selections, a pre-cooked or a pre-canned policy would be asserted essentially as a result of the selections that you're making with regard to what capabilities you wanted to have the user enjoy. And so with Teams Admin Center, we wanted to take that a step further and really expand out the granularity and the ability to have a full kind of policy lifecycle. And so with that includes the ability to create custom policies and assign them to users. Clearly, doing that on a one-by-one basis is really difficult for companies of any size. And so we've been working consistently to add on more and more ways to manage large cohorts of users. And so what we were talking about in our session earlier here at Ignite was the ability to assign policy to large cohorts of users. So if I go into the user detail page, select a whole bunch of users. I can then assign them a policy, and that policy assignment actually doesn't happen in real time. That happens asynchronously. So that way the website's not waiting for the policy backend to go and churn through, 1,000 users or whatever. And then we've also announced the ability to do policy assignment to groups. And this is super compelling. So the idea is you have a modern group, an Office 365 group. You have users enumerated within that group, and you assign the policy to the group object. Then as the group object has membership changes, the policy will flow along with that. So if I have a group that's all my lawyers in Manhattan, and I hire on a new cadre of attorneys, I add them to the group, and they're automatically going to get those policies. And so that allows a lot of flexibility for IT pros to still be able to create custom per user granularity policy, but to be able to manage them at a group layer, so that way you're not having to manage the individual users if you don't need to. And then there's within that the ability to have prioritization of the individual groups. So that way, if you have people who are in multiple groups and policies assigned to each of them, then there's a way to break the ties to be able to make sure that they're getting the right policy assigned to them at the right time. Now, the one thing to note is that for policy assignment to groups, we're rolling this out on a per policy basis. And so while the fundamentals of the back end are generally similar, we do have to do unique work in our back end systems to be able to enable this for policies. And so meeting, calling, messaging policy, all those are supported, handful of others. The ones that we're working on right now that we have gotten a bunch of questions on are app policies. So app permission policy and app setup policy. We want to see those turned on to be able to support assignment to groups as well. And specifically for app setup policy, we have that working in PowerShell, but we still have to build that out within Teams Admin Center, and that's work that we definitely have planned in our kind of short-term roadmap. Just because we very much see the interest, and we see the power that the policy assignment to groups really offers.
Okay, next question is around a little bit around voice management. At this call, one place to manage teams will be able to configure user phone numbers with direct routing through the admin portal. Or do we still need to use the PowerShell?
Yeah, this is really fair. I deserve this one. Yeah, this is the one piece of direct routing that we're still working to get into the product, and absolutely needs to happen. We have the UX, we think we have all the piece parts there. It's taken us a little bit longer to do it than we expected. Originally we had it slated to be done along with all of the moves as and change, along with the ability to CRUD to be able to do moves as and changes to session border controller definitions, voice routing policy definitions, PSTN usages, that sort of thing. And it's just taken us way too long to get that done. It is very, very close to the top of our list. It's just a matter of this happened at the same time as we were also doing a bunch of work to move Teams Admin Center from a PowerShell based backend. We're actually executing PowerShell on the website to a RESTful API. And so that this particular function got caught up in that, and it ends up being because of the different pieces of infrastructure that the PowerShell commandlet ends up hitting, it ended up being a lot more complicated in the back end for us to do. But regardless, that's a long-winded answer for saying yes, we absolutely hear you. We know that it's super important, and we know we got to get that done. And we are actively working on that. I wish I had a time frame to share, because it's a thing that it annoys me to no end, that you can do all these other great things with direct routing, and now we can do dial plans and do all this other fairly deep and sophisticated voice work, and what should be a really simple operation that you still have to drop out and do it with PowerShell. The intent is from the user detail page, for a user that's licensed for voice, I have the ability to go and edit their phone number, select an on-premises number. Because we don't have a store for the numbers that you as a customer have from your carrier, you do need to hand type it in, just essentially in the way that you're doing it with PowerShell. So there is an opportunity for error that's greater than what we would normally wish to see. We would normally want to have a scenario where the numbers exist as objects. They've been vetted to some degree. Maybe uploading a CSV or uploading another list or something like that, and then from there you can manage those phone number objects in the same way that that if you have phone numbers using calling plans, you would be able to manage in some of the similar ways. So while there is a little bit more opportunity for error in doing the phone number assignment, clearly we think it needs to be there, and yeah. So we feel bad, and we're working hard to get it done, and we won't stop until we do. Yeah. So, but it is totally fair to continue to harangue us about this. You can ping me on tech communities. I absolutely have the response. Need to be held responsible for making sure this gets delivered, because it needs to happen.
So another question that I see that bothers some people here. We have a weird situation where one person in our tenant has the latest planner task app, but no one else does. How can we force this to push to update everyone else in the tenant?
Yeah, this is a whole theme, and certainly we've heard feedback on this theme in the past, and the continued feedback on the theme in this Ignite is a great signal for us to think really deeply about some of these scenarios. And I broadly categorize these as I want, as an IT pro, I want to have visibility and control over the features and the updates that are happening in the clients in my network. And that means a bunch of things. I think that encompasses what Ronit, what the question that you asked comes into play, where look, there's this weird asymmetry and we can't quite figure it out, and it feels like this client got an update but another client didn't, and that's weird and we can't really understand why. Down to being able to control, I want to have some cohort of users be available to get one kind of train of updates, and be aware of what's coming down that train of updates, and have another cohort of users get another train. This is in active development. This is something that, though, I know we have a long way to go on, and so I don't want to mischaracterize the level of work that we're doing initially. I think that it will be stepwise in the right direction, but I don't think it's going to be complete. What we're talking about is having the ability through policy to be able to say whether folks are in and out for different preview features. We're talking about ways to expose within Teams Admin Center the latest information about the clients, what rings different clients are in. Probably not using that terminology. That's a little bit more of an internal nomenclature that we use to basically define what versions of software are being consumed by what groups of tenants. But essentially, we do need to provide a lot more visibility and control to IT pros about what clients are in their environment, and what versions and what capabilities those clients have. And so I think about it in that vein. And so there's definitely work that you'll see happening in a quarter, and it's not going to be complete. And so this is another area to definitely hold us accountable, to make sure that you're participating in user voice. You're letting us know what the specifics are that you're needing in order to have good visibility and control over your organization. At the same time, there's a little bit of reticence to make sure that this isn't super heavyweight, or this isn't super complicated. That understand that that's the intention where this comes from. That the updates and another kind of management of the clients is more so something that we have to worry about, and we want to take that on as the service. Yeah, we totally understand and respect the need to be able to have the visibility and control.
Yeah, so I would like to raise a little bit of more general challenge or any more philosophical issue that's raised here, and to raise the issue of when Teams and Outlook will merge, or if we have any plans to blend them in one day. I know it's not really relevant, and it's not like related directly to management stuff, but I think it's a very philosophical question that a lot of people are bothered by.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow. I'm really impressed. Wow, what a question to come to the end of our time on. I'll just going to go quick on this one. If there was anything at the level of importance and kind of and impact, blast radius is the perhaps insensitive term that I use. But if there was any news that of that level of criticality or that level of interest, it certainly wouldn't be coming out in the second repeat of the Ask the Expert session about manageability. I have no knowledge, no idea of any plans in this area. I am very, very happy to continue to take in requirements about Teams manageability and be able to help our IT pros have an easier work day. If one of the things that would make your workday a little bit easier is to have a single client that does everything that Outlook does and everything that Teams does, okay, I'm really curious to hear more about that. That feels hard, just in terms of a pure like user adoption and acceptance piece. But certainly, maybe one client to manage on a machine versus two is a little bit easier. But yeah, we don't have anything to announce on that front. Thank you very much though for the question. Definitely. I think we're close here. So maybe one more, Ronit.
Yeah. So what I will do, I will take a last one question around PowerShell or Graph API to get a user who have the audio conference license and get the reports of minutes they used in their meeting. So we can identify users who are using a lot of minutes or maybe no minutes.
Oh, I totally thought that we had a report for audio conferencing minutes, but now that I'm thinking about it, I bet it is just the consumption balance that we're showing on that. That gets interesting. My sense is that it could be calculated, meaning you could do the heavy lifting of pulling the stats either from the new call. Oh shoot, that's the name of the API. There's a call records API in Graph. You could use that, pull the data. You pull it through PowerShell. Definitely use Graph if you have the opportunity to. You could pull the reports from Teams Admin Center. You need to do that over a period of time, just so that way you're not falling off the 30 or 60, 90-day windows. But it's complicated, one, to do that calculation, and two, the way that we calculate the quantity of minutes and the way that they're used in audio conferencing is not intuitive, and it's fairly sophisticated. So while you'd be able to calculate your usage, knowing what percentage of that usage is being used, knowing how that impacts your subscription, I think would be difficult to ascertain. So that's definitely something that we would want to take away, and that we would want to put together a set of reports on. I'm not aware of anything in that area that's with respect to active development. That doesn't necessarily mean though that it's not happening. So we take all the Q&A that we get for these sessions, we take them back, and that's a great set of metadata that we can use to help prioritize our backlog and help us understand what areas where we still have gaps in different scenarios, to be able to start thinking about future development. And this is definitely one of those areas. And we've gotten just so much fantastic feedback from. This is now our 5th session that Ronit and I have had the opportunity to do live or some version of live. and each one's just been rich and filled with great content, great information. And I just thank you so much for taking the time out of your workday to come out and listen to us talk. It's just fantastic, and it means a ton, and it allows us to do a lot of great work here with the product. So thank you. It's awesome.
Yeah, I just want to sum up and thank you for your great question. We will continue to publish some of the question and answering them. So keep alerted on those answers that we will continue to push. And thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you.